Good morning everyone and welcome to another RF Crypto video. Today's markets have fallen quite significantly at 4.19% over yesterday. The global crypto market cap is down way below 900 billion. It's actually closer to 850 billion now. Bitcoin's price has fallen quite a bit below the $20,000 psychological support level, and Ethereum is inching closer to the $1,000 psychological support level. And the biggest cryptocurrency has fallen by 3.64%, and the second biggest has fallen by almost 7%. And we know that Ethereum always overreacts when the markets move. This decline is due to the SEC rejecting Grayscale's application for a Bitcoin spot ETF. There was a lot of expectations that a spot Bitcoin ETF would be approved by the SEC due to the fact that there was a lot of lobbying going on by Grayscale to the SEC. However, yesterday, this was rejected and the market reacted accordingly by pulling money out of the market and into safer assets like stocks, especially blue chips, and as well as bonds and commodities, which have seen its prices going up. Altcoins are down by a significant amount. The most affected one is Solana, which is down by 10%. Looking at the price of Bitcoin and its charts, it went down below the psychological level of 20,000. Yesterday, we were talking about how it was flirting with this line. It was sort of going below it and then being bought up, going below it, being bought up, and so on and so forth. However, with such a massively negative news and the fact that this created a lot of selling pressure caused the prices to go down, and now it's trading at around 19,000. It's almost going below it and it's heading towards the next support level of 18,000. And we see this price has stabilized at 19,000. However, there is still a lot of selling pressure in the market, especially due to the fact that inflation around the world is at its highest level in 30 to 40 years. Especially today, France has seen inflation rates of 6.5 to 7%. And this has put further selling pressure on the markets, including the crypto markets. So we will have to see where this goes. There is always a tendency for the price to go to the $20,000 psychological level. However, with so much negative news in the market at the moment, it seems like the trajectory is downwards. It might fall more, but now the Grayscale news has already been priced into the market. But I think that if nothing else negative happens, then the prices will pull itself back to 20,000. On the news that brought down the crypto markets quite a bit is Grayscale is suing SEC after spot Bitcoin ETF rejection. The SEC on Wednesday rejected an application from Grayscale Investments to convert its Grayscale Bitcoin Trust to an ETF, and more specifically to a spot Bitcoin ETF. Now Grayscale is suing. The SEC said in its ruling rejecting this spot Bitcoin ETF that Grayscale's application did not do enough to protect investors from fraudulent and manipulative acts and practices. And in a way, this makes sense because the market is still very speculative. It's still an unregulated asset, meaning Bitcoin, and they think they're doing this to protect the consumer from price manipulation and price gauging. However, on the other hand, Bitcoin has been seen as the more stable cryptocurrency, and I don't think there's any other better time to actually approve a spot Bitcoin ETF than now. Because if they do this, then it will be a case where regulations will be ramped up to catch on to the spot Bitcoin ETF. Because if this is approved, then it means that the industry is evolving even further, and it will push for the US government to sort of fast track its regulation and its crypto framework to come into law. So you can see it from both sides, but I think this decision was a bit nearsighted, and they could have done a better job in analyzing what the benefits were against the cons. After the rejection from the SEC, Grayscale is filing for a petition for review with the US Courts of Appeal for the District of Columbia to challenge this decision. Grayscale basically said that they're disappointed with the rejection because they expected this to go through, and they said that they would continue to leverage all of its resources to advocate for its investors and the equitable regulatory treatment of Bitcoin investment vehicles. What this basically means is that other risky assets under the 1934 securities law have been approved, including a futures Bitcoin ETF. However, somehow this spot Bitcoin ETF application has been rejected using the same sort of law, and it just doesn't make sense why there's so much discrepancy in terms of applying this law. So what they're saying is that the SEC is failing to apply consistent treatment and is capriciously in violation of the Administrative Procedure Act and Securities Exchange Act of 1934. We have to remember that Grayscale first submitted an application for a Bitcoin ETF in 2016 and spent the better part of 2017 in conversations with the SEC in order to get it approved. And they were able to get it approved, but it was a futures Bitcoin ETF. Now they're pushing for a spot Bitcoin ETF. It's been 5 years and a spot Bitcoin ETF is still not being approved. And I wonder why, because regulation is being put into place and they should actually approve a spot Bitcoin ETF in order to allow the advancement of the industry, not only in the US, but globally, because we know that who commands the financial system and the financial trends is the United States. However, the SEC believes that the crypto environment still isn't ready. Maybe after the regulation is passed into law, then they'll approve the spot Bitcoin ETF. I think they're just playing it on an extremely safe side. So why does Grayscale want a Bitcoin spot ETF is basically that they hope to correct Grayscale's Bitcoin trust discount and allow the investment firms to charge lower fees, making it easier to move money in and out of the fund. So there is a discount at the moment where it's a difference between the price of Bitcoin and the price of the fund, and this discount has been narrowing. And that's why people thought that, because this discount is narrowing, the spot Bitcoin ETF application will be approved by the SEC, but obviously it wasn't the case. When there's a discount in the market between two different products but based on the same assets, that creates arbitrage opportunities and it creates free profits for people to take advantage of. However, when someone wins, someone else has to lose. So in order to avoid this discrepancy, in order to ensure that the prices are the same, or at least they're narrowed down to the point where people can profit off the differences, they want to convert it into a spot Bitcoin ETF, which will allow it to follow the prices very, very closely. But it is a case where we don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully a spot Bitcoin ETF is approved. It will allow the industry to move forward. Bitcoin dips below 20,000 as crypto market pressure intensifies. So this is another sign of investor uncertainty and the increasing pressure on the industry's major players, because there has been an outflow for Bitcoin specific funds which totaled almost $500 million, essentially wiping out all of the inflows made over the past 6 months. So all of the work that was put into place to up Bitcoin in the past 6 months has been wiped out. And in other words, investors feel less comfortable about risky assets and are rotating out of cryptocurrencies. And this is what I've been telling you guys all along, that people are still very risk averse and they know that investing in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies is a risky affair. And because we are facing an unprecedented socio and geopolitical situation in the world, people are scared and people are afraid that they will lose all their money. So what happens in times like these? The general population, they pull money out of riskier assets and they put it into safer assets in order to maintain its value, such as gold, such as blue chip stocks, and even cash. And this is exactly what's happening with cryptocurrencies, which is seeing a massive outflow of cash. The deteriorating sentiment among investors is also spreading not only to your individual investor, but also institutional investor. Because on Tuesday, Canada-based investment firm Cypherpunk Holdings sold 100% of its Bitcoin and Ethereum holdings. And what they say is that they continue seeing systemic risk propagating through the ecosystem or the crypto ecosystem, and the risk reward and opportunity costs involved are basically skewed toward the riskier side. So they don't see it as a viable investment at the moment. So the prudent approach is to sit on the sidelines and wait for the volatility and illiquidity contagion to come to its logical conclusion. So now they say that the markets are very volatile and they cannot afford to invest in an asset which its value fluctuates way too much. On the other side of things, there are still some companies that are hopeful or have trust in Bitcoin. MicroStrategy puts another $10 million in Bitcoin despite the market crash. cloud software company MicroStrategy has bought more than $10 million worth of Bitcoin. And at the moment, the company has spent almost $4 billion on Bitcoin. However, it has seen a loss of 1.3 billion since the price of the currency has dipped. And this has caused a lot of people to become scared because the margin call for their positions was at 20,000 and the price is now below 20,000. But it's not a bad sign because they were ready for this. And the fact that they don't have a liquidity crisis, a solvency crisis, or they didn't file for liquidation or bankruptcy means that they were well prepared and means that they have contingencies in place to sort of cushion this blow until the price of Bitcoin rises once again. Earlier this month, the CEO took to Twitter to state to followers and investors that the company anticipated volatility and structured its balance sheet so that it could continue to hold through adversity. Michael Saylor, the CEO, had previously addressed the margin call concerns in May, assuring shareholders then that even if the price of Bitcoin continued to fall, I think he even said 12,000, his company was prepared to post some other collateral in order to cushion this blow and in order to be able to profit from it once the price explodes. Finally, 80,000 Bitcoin millionaires are wiped out in the great crypto crash of 2022. So more than 80,000 Bitcoin investors have lost their millionaire status because of this decrease in the global crypto market. Back in November 12th, when the price were at all-time highs, a total of 109,000 Bitcoin addresses reported a balance of greater than $1 million. Now that number is 26,000. But we are seeing a sign of people accumulating Bitcoin, of retail investors taking advantage of the price dip in order to obtain more Bitcoin to profit at a later stage, because the bear market has seen more than 13,000 new whole coiners, which are wallets that contain one or more Bitcoin, and these have been added to the market. So there are two such things. People who invested early on have lost a lot of money and they lost their millionaire status. But now that the price has gone down significantly, we are seeing retail investors accumulating a lot of Bitcoin at a cheap price so that they can make a massive profit in the long term. With that, we come to the end of today's video. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, hit the subscribe button, and share this video with your family and friends. Invest wisely, and cheers.